Good afternoon, everyone all around the world. Welcome to Soho Media Club. We are on Series 3, Episode 1. It is August 5th, the year 2020. My name is Mookie Culhan. I am your resident host of Soho Media Club, as I have been for now 1 full year. Happy birthday, Soho Media Club. Happy anniversary. All things in between. We have a very, very, very special summertime episode for you today, where we will be revealing a little bit of behind the scenes of Soho Media Club. And we're going to have a deep dive into our brand new Soho Media Club podcast called Naked Stories. So with us today, we've got our founders, Tom and Jessica, the new Soho Media Club Naked Stories podcast hosts, and my sister from another Mr. Roses, and well, her name is Roses Okhipo. Sorry, it's not Roses. And we've got the producers from PRL Studio, Anya and Mihal. We've also got a very, very special preview of some of the music and the video that's gone into this podcast. So without further ado, I'd like to give you a little sneak peek of what we've got in store today. Now, if that didn't make you want to grab some sangria and a bunch of friends and start doing a cha-cha, I don't know what will. But that was a little bit of a sneak peek of our brand new Naked Stories podcast theme tune, which we're going to chat to you guys a little bit later on and reveal some of those insights. So I want to just give you a little bit of background on what we've got in store today. So again, we want to give you a little behind the scenes. You've been to Soho Media Club before. You know what it's like. We normally have great panels, great sessions. It's great dialogues. It's about everyone having a voice, talking about diversity, inclusion, things that are about equality, things that are about people sharing their stories. And the podcast Naked Stories is a little bit of an extension of that, but a little bit more of a deeper dive into things that are personal stories of setbacks and resilience, perseverance, things that deserve to be heard, and revealing a very, very, very revealing deep dive of what happens inside the media culture and the highlights that go around that. And some of the guests that we've had on so far, the topics have been around gender diversity, sexual orientation, disability, and racial and cultural diversity as well. So a very, very special, warm Soho Media Club welcome for our first guests today. They are not only close personal showbiz friends of mine, but they are the co-founders of Soho Media Club. Huge, huge, huge virtual round of applause for Jessica Lapswala and Tom Wachowski. I don't even know why to look at your name because I know you guys for like a year now. Hello, Jay and Tom. How are you?
Hello, Mookie. Hi. Well, this is slightly bizarre, isn't it?
It is really weird. Okay, so for all of you big Soho Media Club fans out there, or anyone that's tapping into LinkedIn or YouTube right now for the first time, this is the first time I've ever had the pleasure of interviewing our founders, and I've been dying to chat to you guys anyway, which will save some deeper dives for later on. But I'd love to hear more about Naked Stories. So tell us about this podcast. Why did you decide to start it, and what is the concept behind it? So Jessica, I'm going to throw to you first, please.
Oh my God, I'm a bit nervous actually, Mookie, being on this side of the camera.
That's okay. I only bite halfway through.
So as you know, we've been doing meetups for a year now, and we've spoken to many people in the industry and heard lots of stories, lots of individual stories, and that's our ethos: unlimited stories, everyone having a voice. And some of the stories that we've heard have been quite jaw-dropping, and we felt that those stories really should have a platform. People should have a platform to tell those stories and either inspire others or make a change in the industry through the power of their stories. And so we thought the best format for this would be to invite guests to a podcast, for them to be interviewed and really share their experiences and what they've gone through in terms of discrimination or prejudice within the industry.
And Tom, whose idea was it for the podcast in the first place? Was it both of you guys thinking together? Because you two are a fantastic team, business wise and friends wise. Was it something that came out over a couple drinks, or was it something that's been brewing for a while now?
I mean,
I'm talking to you, Tom. You're not getting out of this.
Always a very good question. So who come up? Always we thinking together. So we used to think that podcasts should be done, but we couldn't find the way and think about theme and how we create the podcast. And it was like, again, it was some circumstances and some inspiration from the others that, oh, actually, you know what? We know how to create the podcast. And the guys came to us and said, oh, Soho Media Club is pretty cool. And let's do the podcast together. And on the beginning, we didn't know how to create the podcast, like immersive podcast. We didn't know everything. And then we had the conversation with Jay, actually, we should try to create the content and do this properly. Mm-hmm. So, of course, we think together.
Excellent. And then how has the process been so far for you guys? Because it is something brand new for you and totally different. So producing live events and meetups and conferences and executive level interviews is one thing, and something that's quite a podcast about intimate stories is another. So Jessica, back to you, please.
Yeah, I guess we see content as content, and it doesn't really matter what the channel is that we get that content out onto. So whether it's an article or a podcast or a meetup, it just needs to be really good content and compelling stories. However, when we originally started the podcast with PRL Studio, we thought it would be quite a simple process, but it's been a huge learning curve in terms of what goes into a podcast, how to really get the storytelling right, how to create a great narrative, how to create something that's really immersive, which I'm sure PRL will speak to you about later. So for us, we start with what's a great story, and then we think about what's the best format to tell that story and bring those voices to the forefront.
Right. And who are these voices? Are you able to give us a little bit of a flavor of what's in store?
So when we originally came up with the concept and we were hearing these stories, what we realized quite quickly was that people were quite afraid to be the real them and share their real experiences. They'd always tame it down or not tell the full story because of a fear of perhaps not getting the next job or their reputation on the line in the industry. And so we actually, we didn't want that. We wanted everything to be stripped down, fully transparent, really honest stories. And so we decided that we'd give the guests anonymity, and so they could really be themselves on the show. So all of our guests so far have remained anonymous and shall do.
And you've given them pseudonyms as well to protect their identity. What is the theme of these pseudonyms?
Tom, do you want to go ahead?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I have to say the word pseudonym 10 times first.
Say that again.
I said Tom needs to say the word pseudonym 10 times in a row first. Just kidding.
She's challenging you, Tom. Go for it.
So you're giving your guests anonymity because they've got quite personal stories to share. So to protect their identities, they're anonymous. However, you've named them with a specific theme in mind. So what is the theme for their names?
So we've given each of our guests names which are flowers or plants. And so our first guest is called Orchid. And you'll meet our host later on in this meetup called Roses, so it's quite apt. So we've had Orchid, we've had Azalea, we've had Linden, and I'm sure if you subscribe to the podcast, you'll find out who our future guests are as well. But I think just going back to what you said, Mookie, about these personal stories, they're personal stories. They're also quite heart-wrenching stories, and stories that previously the guests haven't been able to share with anyone, even with their families. Sometimes they haven't been able to share any of their experiences because They are things that they put in the back of their mind, or things that they've previously felt like they just haven't had the platform to speak about.
This is actually an amazing thing, because it's always very hard to say what you think in front the other people, and this is actually an amazing occasion, because sometimes when we talk with the team, people just go into the fears, and like sometimes it's like, wow, I don't even know that this thing can be so powerful, and people like the way how we taking that, and we not judge anybody, and this is like talking, it's this person and microphone, and there is no judgment. It's just saying what you think, and this is actually amazing that we can put everything from ourselves.
So the industry has lots of stories and a lot of stories to tell. And the ones that stand out at Soho Media Club the most are the ones that are very personal and sometimes have certain consequences that go with it, or to that person or the other people. And I think it's very respectful how you've kept things anonymous to protect the identity, so that way that story can probably have a louder voice. How did you go about finding your delegates? How did you find your participants for the podcast so far? And is there anything in particular that you're looking for future podcasts?
Well, we've done our research, and we've found people who are very complex individuals. So we've touched on subjects like health anxiety, racism, sexism, and usually it's not one of those things in isolation. It's people are layered individuals who have faced multiple types of discrimination. And so through our research and our meetups and our network, we found that once you open the door and welcome people to share their story, they're actually really eager to do so, because they understand the power of stories as well. That our brains are wired with stories, and that's, if they can just share their story and perhaps influence just one person or inspire one person, then it's worth it.
100%. So speaking of which, I think it's about time to meet our new host. So without further ado, we will introduce Rose's Okhipo, who, again, I've known for almost a year now. She's been coming to Soho Media Club. Thank you, Tom and Jessica, by the way, our co-founders of Soho Media Club, who have been running this group passionately and respectfully, and have created an amazing community of people. And Roses, you're one of them. So welcome, Roses, to Soho Media Club. May I welcome you, finally. Yay! It's so great to see you, and I just want to say I'm so proud of you guys. The pod, I've listened to episode 0 and episode 1, and it sounds amazing. So, like, I want to just hear from your personal experiences. Obviously, I've known you through Soho Media Club, but if you don't mind just kind of introducing yourself, tell us what you do for your day job living, and how did you get involved in this podcast? Like, how did this crossover for you? So
I am a freelance producer. I work mainly as a coordinator, but I've moved into the producing role. So hi, you guys. I haven't got a job right now, but I had to put that in. So I work through post-production and production, and I've just been in the industry for about 8 years now, working across advertising, broadcast, and just been here in the media industry trying to make my way through to the top.
Excellent. We're all here to help, so don't worry. We'll be posting that you are a freelance producer for hire. And at what point did you start to come to Soho Media Club? And at what point did the idea of the podcast come about?
Okay, so I got it's in episode 0 where I just introduced myself, but it was one of those RSVPs. on my phone, it was like, oh, you have RSVP to come to this event. And I was like, oh God, I'm tired and I want to go home. And I remember it was in November. So as you can imagine, traveling in London in November, it's not fun. So I thought, you know, let me go. I don't know who I'm going to meet. It might be fun. So I go to this venue in Soho, and it was literally like one of the best decisions I've made in my life. Not being dramatic or anything, but it really was. The vibe was different to any other kind of event that I've been to. And everyone was welcoming. It was nice. There was food. If you know me, I love food. So I stayed.
Food's important at any meetup.
So I stayed, and it was just this open, honest, and just it was just a cool vibe. There was no kind of like, you know, people just looking at you from the side of their eye trying to like size you up. Everyone was just talking to me, and I just felt like I was at home. But the way that I came to become the host for this is actually a crazy story. If you know me, I'm a Christian, so I speak to God on a daily basis. I was like really down on myself, and I was feeling like I hadn't been as productive as I wanted to be during the lockdown. And I was just like praying, and I was talking to God, and I said, like, Lord, you want me to be in this industry. You've told me this. So what is it that I'm supposed to be doing? Because I'm not being creative. I'm not, you know, using my ability the way that I know I can. And literally, I remember it was nighttime, about 11 p.m. And I got an email, and it was Jessica. And she was like, hey, Roses, we just had this idea, and we like wondering if you'd like to be the host. And I was like, thank you, Jesus. That's literally how it happened. I was in my room, got the email after speaking to the Lord, and this is how it happened.
A media miracle, I would say.
Miracle.
It's your first time ever doing anything like this, and you know, we're going to catch up with PRL Studio later, who gave you some vocal training and gave you, you know, you were able to go in the studio in a COVID environment. We want to hear what that was like. But let's get kind of down to the nitty gritty about these stories. So what have you learned from the stories so far?
I've learned that it's not just me. I have my own experiences of working in this industry for, you know, over 8 years, and having like experiencing racism, discrimination. You know, I'm a Black woman. I have an invisible disability, which people are not aware of unless I tell them. And, you know, I have all these layers to me. Yeah. And it's just been one of those experiences where it hits home, it hits core. So it's like, I haven't been confident enough to, you know, expose my story or say my story. And it's just like me trying to build courage whilst doing my part in this journey, where we're making and trying to create this change.
Yeah. And what's been the most, the biggest, you know, the biggest influence of anyone that you've interviewed so far? What's been your most inspiring or influential vibe that's come from these men and women who you've been talking to?
Ooh, that's a good question. It's hard for me to pinpoint, because it just makes me understand that people are not settling for this treatment. People are not sitting there. All the people I've spoken to have now woken up to the fact that they need to be part of this change. And I think that's what inspired me. Like, and one day I will tell my story, and one day, you know, people hopefully will understand that we all have the ability. We all have to, you know, it's not just an individual journey. We all have to do this together.
Yeah, I agree. And so thank you for hosting this show and helping everyone tell their stories, because it is about getting these voices out. It's a bit about these stories coming out, and someone, hopefully, you know, whoever's listening to the podcast, hopefully everyone, because it's available now and everywhere, Spotify, will be able to like listen to these stories and go, do you know what, that happened to me too? I wasn't sure what to do, or you felt like it was going to jeopardize your job or put somebody else in trouble. So it's important that a platform such as a podcast, which folks can remain anonymous, you don't have to show your face, etc. People can be a bit more naked stories. Like, was that your idea, the naked stories?
No.
Jay all credit.
I like the sound of that. I just want to say, by highlighting the facts and current state of the media industry, we're not trying to push anyone out.
Yes.
Well, maybe the racists and the bigots, we're trying to push you guys out. But our ultimate goal is to encourage the creation of a space so that everyone can feel included, everyone can feel like they have a voice, everyone can have their platform to be themselves in that creative environment and just be awesome.
Cool. And I think we've got a little snippet of an audio clip that's a sneak preview from one of these episodes. So normally I'd throw a little bit old-fashioned roll VT, but we can roll AV.
I think I would advise him to listen. And I think quite often white people have, not just white people, I know that I've done the same thing. I think sometimes you have a tendency to be just defensive and just almost immediately like, oh, well, that didn't happen, because in your mind, you're used to it not happening to you. So you think, can't be about that. I would advise that person to listen and take stock of why they're thinking that way, because essentially you're thinking that way because you have a privilege of not having to worry about that kind of thing. So I think instead of just saying things, I think quite often people just say things without actually thinking about what they're about to say. Think about what you're going to say, think about what kind of impact it's going to have on that person and whether it's going to be helpful or whether it's going to silence them.
Wow. That's a big statement. So can you tell us a little bit more about some of these conversations that you've been having backstage?
Ooh, backstage. It's been really interesting because the two producers at PRL Studio, they are white and they're from Poland. And when we have these guests in talking about all these experiences, you know, sometimes they can't relate. They're like, they have obviously their own stories that we've shared behind the scenes, but they come to me and Jay and they ask us questions. And that's what I want, you know, our community and people who are listening to this podcast to do. I don't want it to be like the comment sections on all these social medias sites where people are just arguing and not listening and not taking into account what's being said to them. I want people to come in and have a genuinely open heart.
Yes.
And questions. Like, I'm not saying don't ask questions, because you might not know what half these people are talking about, but I want the comment section to reflect this kind of honest and truthful and supportive atmosphere where, you know, we're not bashing each other. We're generally trying to encourage and educate each other on what these issues, these real life issues that people like myself experience every single time they walk in the door of their whatever company they're working in.
Right. So this podcast, and again, I've had the pleasure of hearing a bit of it before it's been published, but it's able to take those voices, translate them into the story, and incorporate some really great production around that. So awesome. So thank you so much, Roses, for a little bit of that insight. We're going to come back to you later for the panel session, while we introduce now our team at PRL Studios, which is Anya Zidzek and Michal Kaluzinski. Have I said your names right? Nostrovia! Okay.
Hi, guys.
Okay. Hi, guys.
Hi, Anya. Hi, Michal. Welcome to Soho Media Club, and thank you so much for all your hard work on the brand new Soho Media Club podcast series called Naked Stories, now available on Spotify, iTunes, Acast, Deezer, everywhere else that comes together. So I'd love just to kind of hear from your point of view. Let's talk production. Let's talk a little bit about how this project kind of came about for you guys, and what is it about these stories that has inspired you as content producers?
Right. Can I start?
Anya, you first.
Yeah, you go. I mean, Jessica and Tom kind of shared the story, but we met them a few months ago. Someone introduced us to Jay and Tom. Sometimes when you meet people, you know something clicked, and you don't know what it is about yet, but you kind of have a feeling that something meaningful and great and exciting is just about to happen. Anyway, cut the story short, they invited us for their first virtual meetup. and we loved every single minute of it. But obviously, time is very limited, etc. And afterwards, we reached out to them and we said, hey, listen, it's just brilliant. We love that. But what about, making a podcast and just sharing more insights and more stories in more details? We didn't know that they were already thinking about making a podcast.
Right.
So they had an idea and a concept, etc. So yeah, and this is how it happened, how it started, and here we are. So that was very exciting. It is still exciting because we are in the middle of producing next episodes. But once we knew what we wanted to achieve, we wanted to make this show as immersive as possible. And our ultimate goal was for the listeners to be swept away for a while and be motivated to start thinking differently. And a big part of the production was the emphasis on personal stories, personal feelings, emotions, sound design, and also narratives. So that's why we went for unscripted and unedited interviews that our guests channeled through their memories and their personal experiences. And we immersed them with edited narratives. So, basically to get that balance between authenticity and also edited content.
Right.
So
the storytelling is brought to life, not only from the stories that they have to tell, but through some good state-of-the-art kind of cutting, bleeding edge production techniques. And maybe, Michal, do you mind touching a little bit on that? Let's talk some shop for our production community tapped in today. And podcasting is a very important thing, especially since we've had to pivot all of our productions in lockdown. So tell us a little bit about more how you brought those stories to life and with your production techniques.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is a great format, and it's a growing format. It's very versatile. So we thought it would be perfect, for telling these stories, especially they're supposed to be anonymous. And so we wanted to strike a balance between, like Anna said, authenticity and also, the production value. So we basically have this process where we create, immersive audio shows. And we focus on the narratives. We have first those conversations with actual people, and based on those conversations, we tease out the storyline. These conversations are raw, unstructured. They are very real, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about them a bit later. But we need to tease out the storyline from that, and then Jessica and Roses write the narrative, which basically take the listeners on the journey, through whatever the person has, to tell. And then we wanted to make sure that this is the show is immersive, that people can actually immerse themselves in the stories because they're really, really personal and important. So at PRL, we have several sound engineers, and for this particular project, we invited the engineer who is also a music composer. We knew that music will be very important to carry the moods, to tell the story better, and so on. And he spent a lot of time designing those points of action and so on. And we also used a little bit of sound effects too. We didn't want this to be an audio drama, so we wanted to give just enough of that flavor of the sound of the atmosphere that that kind of enhances the story rather than overpowers that. So that's in short.
Sure. So I think just to kind of go a little bit more nitty gritty, because the immersive productions that I work on and a lot of people might be thinking about are virtual reality or augmented reality, spatial audio, binaural, things like that. What were some of the audio production techniques that you actually used to make that immersive?
So like I said, we wanted to strike the right balance between, we didn't want to overproduce that because these are actually raw stories. So we have the structure where you have several elements. We have the conversations, we have the narratives, and basically each episode goes in a way where, you know, Roses is telling the narrative, and then we are serving the conversations, the quotes that take the journey on those, take the listener on those journeys. What we do, we basically use music beds, and we use various types of sound effects to immersively enhance that audio experience. And that's, you know, the sort of formula that we've decided to use for this podcast.
Okay, for the production teams listening out there, what tools did you use specifically? What kind of engineering tools? Let's talk shop.
Yeah, sure. So, well, we do everything in Pro Tools. We use our own libraries of sounds. We have a Foley studio as well, and we also use some libraries. Like I said, we have a bunch of music beds that we use from libraries, but we also use some compositions of our own to put this stuff together.
Okay, no problem. Let us listen in on another sneak preview clip. So roll audio, please.
The minute you do that to me, then all bets are off. And I don't literally give a shit what happens next, because I will go to your boss, and I will go to that boss, and I will go to anybody that will listen and tell them what you did, because I am absolutely 100% sure in my convictions that everything you just said to me was fucked up and wrong, and I did literally nothing to deserve that. So if I'm confident enough in my convictions that that is the case, then you're fucked. I'm going.
So pre-watershed. So if anyone's tuning in there, I'm sure we'll insert some beats and post-productions back at PRL Studios. No problem there. I just want to let's talk about the empathy side of things and the emotion side of things as a producer, as you being part of that storytelling process. Back to you, Anna, about were there any of these stories that were that you found shocking, or were there other elements? How did some of these stories make you feel emotionally as a producer?
Muki, it's
Anya.
Yeah. Hi. It's shocking. It's eye-opening. It's first of all, we feel very lucky and privileged to be a part of this project, and it's just amazing stories and amazing people, and we picked that soundtrack specifically because it was our first guest, and she shared amazing, heartbreaking stories with us. So it stayed with me until now, to be honest. Shocking. I mean, honestly, it's not like I didn't know what was going on in the world, and not just in the media industry, but I never ever felt that in any way, as a white woman, I was kind of privileged. And, hearing to all these stories, I realized that actually I am. And in a way, it's sad, it's not right. So, eye-opening, really. It's just, I'm still, as you can see, I'm quite emotional, because I just realized what these people were going through, and that they don't have that luxury to take some stuff we white people take for granted every day. So yeah, that's the biggest thing. And it's and I never thought about myself as a privileged person, because obviously we are foreigners living in the country for over 15 years, and before we were living in Belgium, etc. So obviously we have our own personal stories, unfortunately going through some discriminations, etc. But still, it's nothing close to what we heard from our guests.
And I think, like, as a producer, when something that you're working on actually moves you to feel something,
oh yeah,
you put that back into the work and back into the tools and the techniques to then tell that story, so whoever is listening to it will probably have the same type of emotional impact that it had for you as a production team. So Excellent. So we're going to get back into with you guys because once again, these are stories that are very in depth. They're very personal stories. They're stories that speak the truth. There are stories that are hitting some very, very heavy subjects. But we support them and we support their voices. Again, man, woman, it doesn't matter what color of your skin or religion or where you're coming from in any part of the world. That's what Soho Media Club is about, and bringing these ethos and values to the forefront. And again, congratulations on a fantastic podcast. And let's deep dive a little bit further.
It's a team spirit, Muki. You know, thank you to Jessica, to Tom, to Roses, our host. She's such a humble person, and you know, she's a hard worker. So we really, you know, enjoy working with all of them. Thank you, and you know, thank you to our guests that had, you know, that spirit to come to the studio and basically share all the stories.
Exactly. Well, Anya and Michal, thank you. Don't go anywhere because we're going to have you back for our panel in just a moment. But we're going to bring Tom and Jessica back on and talk about the music again. So we appreciate, you know, PRL Studios having some original score and composition. And Tom and Jessica, if you're able to pop back onto our little screens. Hi, guys. Hi. This is kind of crazy, but it's cool. It's so weird. Let's talk a little bit about the theme tune. Now, I heard a little birdie, namely our chat before the show, and we know that there was inspiration from a fantastic Italian opera from a track called Bella Ciao. Who would like to go first on the inspiration of the theme tune? Why Bella Ciao, and what did it turn into? Tom, do you have a funny story for me?
It's not actually funny story. I mean the song is very powerful. I mean, because it was singing by Partigiano in Italy, which tried to rescue the whole country from the fascists. And somehow during the many different years, this song has been reused for many different occasions where people were fighting for the greatest good. But the theme behind the story, we were watching the same TV series, and maybe Jay, maybe you want to come back in here as well.
Yeah, so we were watching Money Heist, Spanish series on a streaming platform, and this song Bella Ciao, the music was used to kind of represent resistance and fighting for what's good and fighting for what you believe in, and that's what we're trying to do. So at Soho Media Club, that's our ethos. We want to give people a voice, and we want to fight for equality and for everyone to have a voice. And so the music really resonated with us, and we thought, actually, do you know what? This is a folk song. This is, you know, hundreds of years old, and we were looking to create a soundtrack, some sort of music to go with the podcast, and it represented what we believe in really well, and it represents kind of what we're trying to achieve in the podcast as well. So, another collaboration came in.
Yeah, exactly. So we were thinking, oh, who can actually do that? And David Rose, as our member, we said, oh, actually, we should go to him and explain what we really want to achieve. And we just send a very quick message to him. And are you interested? Maybe you can help us to create this particular song. So we sent for him a couple of different examples, like for piano, the notes, the scores for piano, for the guitar, etc. And he said, oh, the guitar is great. And literally it was like 1.5 day or 2 days after, we just received the whole tune, like three minutes tune. It was actually amazing that somebody want to pick this up and actually create the 3 minutes, even when we were needed just only 10 seconds.
Yeah, he just like picked up completely. Like, we sent him the outline of the podcast, and from the start he completely believed in it. And as soon as we asked him, David, can you help us create the music, he was on it. And so he pulled together 2 musicians and then basically turned it around. It was amazing. And it's really nice because David has been a member of Soho Media Club from the start, and Roses has been a member of Soho Media Club since late last year. And our whole aim was to get members involved in Soho Media Club and change things together. It's not about me and Tom driving it and doing what we want to do. It's about getting people involved and including the whole community. So it was really nice to have that collaboration again, with somebody else that's a member.
Yeah, fantastic. And just so everyone is aware, the David that they're speaking of, again, is just to repeat, David Ross from Invisible Means Production. I know him because he is also the manager of Harry Shotto, one of our other clients that we work with. But he has been 100% loyal and being there for almost every single meetup that we do, even virtually online. So that's a fantastic way to get your members involved. And he definitely went above and beyond. So I know a specific music video has been made for this, and our wonderful behind the scenes producer, director, editor, video extravaganza extraordinaire, James Goodenough, has been a huge influence in Soho Media Club. And we're super grateful to you, James, for all the hard work you've put in. And let's look at a little clip of this music video to the theme tune to Naked Stories by Soho Media Club. So
we should show Mr. James as well. So.
Yeah, Mr. James, give us a
I'm like trying to do I WhatsApp him now while we're live. So James, well done on that video. Like, we're going to show the entire clip in its entirety after we do the panel discussion, and we really want everyone to please stick around and watch the entire thing. It's very beautifully done. So do you want to give us a little behind the scenes production on how it was made and some of the footage used behind it and the inspiration, aside from you being given a brief from our wonderful team?
Well, the shoot was done through lockdown, so yeah, it was one of my few masked up shoots, because as I'm sure most people who watch this know, that the industry was hit pretty hard during lockdown, so there's a lot of sitting around. So it was actually very nice to be out on a shoot. Certainly, we were in the studio filming the two guys on the guitar. And the BLM footage was supplied by a guy called Kenny Tran, who is also another Soho Media Club member.
Right.
So yeah, quite a few people all came together to make it happen.
And I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, what was it like to be filming in the middle of, we're still in the middle of the pandemic. It's still here. It's still locked down. There's still restrictions and precautions. So what is the advice that you can give to anyone looking to kind of potentially be on location somewhere?
Like I said, I haven't done too much, but obviously social distancing is still very much a thing. Smaller crews, I think, are the way it's going to be for a while.
Yeah.
I personally always prefer smaller crews anyway, but I think this is the way it's going to be forced. Face masks, obviously food is a difficult one. We've seen photos from previous meets of the food table with everything wrapped up and whatnot.
Right.
So yeah.
So safety first, basically.
Absolutely, safety will always be first. But at the same time,
if you didn't say that,
get a job done.
100%. No, it's a beautiful piece. So we're gonna have a look at that later. Thank you, James, Tom, Jay. I would love all you guys to stay here and invite the rest of our speakers back on stage. So Anya, Michal, and Roses. Roses. Everyone's here together. So again, this is Soho Media Club. This is now the sister channel of the podcast, which has so many great in-depth stories to tell as an extension, not only as an extension of Soho Media Club as our meetup in this show, but it's a property on its own, and it really stands out on its own. And I just thought I'd go back to you, Roses, about telling us a little bit more what it's like kind of working together to get these stories to come to life with the team that's in front of you here.
So it's been a pleasure. I can't even express how grateful I am to work with the team. They're so open, so honest, so giving. And like, for instance, I've never done any kind of voiceover before. And, you know, Anna and Mihal, they just spent their spare time teaching me how to speak like the Queen. But better than that, you know, they gave me all these tips and tricks to allow my personality to come through. It's just been a blessing. And for Tom and Jay, like, you know, I stalk them every month during the meetup. So I'm always talking with them and speaking about what they have planned. So it's just an honor to be asked to host this. Like, it blows my mind. And I have to shout out to all the people that we spoke to and all the people that shared their stories with us. Man, you guys are proper gangsters. Like, the things that I heard, it just, you guys are laughing at me. The things I heard, no, on a serious note, the things I heard, it just blew my mind. Like, there was tears in the studio from all of us, like, and I don't cry. And it was just amazing and inspiring and humbling to hear these stories and hear these people going through these things. And just knowing that, number one, I'm not the only one. So I need to push hard. I need to do my part more for what we're trying to do in this, you know, not just in the industry, in the world, literally. We're trying to change, make a change and make it better for people coming up. You know, we've been singing this same song for years, and it's now time that we sing a victory like the Bella Ciao song. We need to sing a victory that we have made a change. We have made this happen. Every single one of us has been part of this jigsaw that's just created this amazing environment and world for people to be themselves.
100%. And I know firsthand, knowing Tom and Jay and being involved in Soho Media Club for a year and a bit now, you know, it's been on the cards. So it's been a great production. And just kind of going back to the people and the stories and the kind of objective for each episode, over to Jessica and Anya, as far as the, you know, did you approach each interview with a clear objective of what you wanted to get out of this, or how did the interview process go about with each of your flowers and trees?
Well, Anya and I have been on all the briefing calls, so we have a pre-brief call with each of the guests before we have the actual interview in the studio. And I mean, to be honest, even on the pre-brief calls, we've been in tears because it's just, all these people want to do is do their job. And they have so many barriers. There are just so many barriers that no one really understands. And sometimes, why would they understand? Because you're not in that person's shoes. But I guess that's the common theme that we found, is that these people just want to do their job. You know, it's just about doing a bloody good job in TV and film. They have to go through all these struggles, these barriers, the abuse, the comments, the microaggressions, and really, I think that's what's hit us hard, is kind of, you know, understanding really the reality of what someone has to do to get a job, to keep a job, to maintain their reputation within the industry, and what they have to compete with.
And I know, Anya, I asked you to chime into that. That's you know, super great insights from Jessica there. If you've got something to add to that, Anya, and then I know Mihal, you wanted to chime into that. So if you could jump in right after Anna, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, Jessica, you know, said it all, and you know, the industry has a huge problem, not just media industry, you know, any industry. Basically, what I mean, you know, of not viewing people who are minorities as full-rounded human beings. You know, that's unfair. That's wrong. It's, you know, equality should be normality, but it's not.
Yeah, and you know, going also back to what Rosa was mentioning, which is tears. What I realized, and I wasn't actually expecting that, but what I realized is that for every single guest that we have here in the studio, or we talk to remotely, it's been a cathartic experience. And that's not something that, I was anticipating. It was going so deep into stories. And, one of the guests said, well, I just told you what I've told maybe 5 people in my life. And then I realized that I thought that I really knew about these, issues of discrimination and so on. But I was really underappreciating that.
Yeah. Well, the good news that to come out of all of those statements and on all of that discussion is that there is now a resource available, which is this podcast for people to listen to and hopefully relate to and want to take some action about it and not be afraid and know that there are hotline numbers to call and resources to tap into online that you are able to remain anonymous and be less hesitant to come forward with any of your stories. Just kind of like final words before we're wrapping up. Tom, over to you, please.
It's not like final words. I mean, because I was just quiet.
We've got 9 minutes.
I mean, the clip is actually 3 minutes. So, because in general, we should make the another alliance. We actually should be together. So, because the whole dream and call this not utopia, just actually dream that we don't need to talk about a diversity and inclusion, especially in the media, and we don't need to talk about using the stereotypes by people to the other people, that we actually equal together always, and it doesn't matter which race you are, which religion you are you male or female, that we are actually sitting together and we don't talk about these problems. So this is like, and this is actually, it would be amazing word. And seriously, especially when the media industry can actually make this happen, it's mean that we can influence so many different other people, and like from 100 people can influence millions of the people, and it's be great.
100%. So tying into that really nicely is a great comment from one of our viewers today, Philip. Thank you for writing that in, to have this platform, to have an open conversation and making, we can only make a change if we allowed each other to share our stories. So do you agree with that, Anya?
Yeah, definitely. And, a very interesting thing is that most of our guests who came to the studio, obviously they were nervous, emotional, but most of them actually felt like they've been through therapy with us, and somehow they got their closure.
Yeah.
In a way, it's very positive. But also, I just want to say that audio, it's a great medium to create that intimate connection with the listeners. So, we wanted to contribute to already existing and ongoing discussions in the media industry and outside of media industry. This is very important. But as well, through Medium, we hope to gain many listeners, because talking is one thing, but listening and trying to understand and joining us and inspire the change, it's another thing.
Yeah, I think inspiring to change is really the key statement behind all of this. I mean, Roses, do you have any advice for anyone that will be listening to these podcasts? Any advice for them about speaking out or telling your story in some way, shape, or form?
Yeah, I think you need to open up that box, that Pandora box that you've been shutting out and you've been just pushing to the side just to get through each day. You need to look at it and face it head on, and find that safe space. If it's a person, if it's an organization, even if it's writing it down in a book, find a safe space where you can put these experiences. And I think definitely speaking to somebody or somebody you don't know, we're opening up this platform to anybody that has stories. So, you just have to face it. Stop shutting it out. Stop hiding behind something else. You need to face it.
Yeah, and there was a little bit of audio problems on your end, Roses. So just to reinterpret it for anyone that did not understand or hear that, is about finding that bravery to speak out about it and tell your stories and find these platforms. And of course, with Soho Media Club and Naked Stories, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and of course, YouTube and on LinkedIn. So you are always able and welcome to be tapping in 24/7. One of us will get back to you and say hello. I've got like a big graphic. Oh, multiple colors. We are so completely talented.
It's a different episodes.
Just think fantastic. Yeah. And Jay, back to you. Like, as the founder, one of the co-founders of Soho Media Club, you and Tom, what's the best advice that you can give our listeners and viewers on finding that strength inside to have your voice heard?
It is scary. It's scary speaking out, and you don't know what the consequences might be, and there will be consequences. And I think part of it is accepting that there could be, you could lose your job, you could, things could happen. There will be consequences, but be true to yourself. Don't ever compromise yourself. Stick to your core and what you believe in and what your values are. And if you think that something is not right, it's probably not right. So say something. And
going with your gut feeling.
Go with your gut feeling. And the other thing I'd say is find yourself allies in the industry. So, men and women, and find yourself allies and find yourself good people to work with. And like I love working on this project because the team here, I just really enjoy working with everyone. Everyone's so open-minded, and we don't look at, oh, you're a Polish person, you're an Indian person, you're a black person. It's just that it just doesn't even come into it. So find yourself, as one of our guests said in our first episode, find your tribe.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be one community. It's just finding that place where you feel like you're valued.
100%. It is tricky to closing words from fellow co-founder Tom before we play out the video.
The most important thing is just be yourself. Just be yourself and never give anybody to let you down. So be yourself.
And being yourself, going with your gut, finding your tribes, finding your allies, stick to your story. Know that there are people out there who will listen. Know that there are platforms out there for you to be talking to and engaging with. There are hotline numbers. We've talked about making a little, giving some updates on the Soho Media Club website. And with that, we will be saying thank you to Anya, Michal, Roses, Tom, and Jessica for our season 3, episode 1 of Soho Media Club. You can find us at sohomediaclub.com, www.sohomediaclub.com, at Soho Media Club 1, and all the popular places that you can find podcasts. This podcast is live now. We beg of you to check it out. We're not begging anybody, but check it out. Let us know what you think of it. Subscribe to the podcast and to the pages on YouTube. Give us your comments, and we're happy to take those on board and have some conversations down the road. Our meetups will never end, rain or shine, lockdown or no lockdown. We are here for you. Without further ado, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Soho Media Club. And this is the official music video for Naked Stories by Soho Media Club podcast. My name is Mookie, and we'll see you next month.
Bye.